So today I want to talk to you about a player called Pep Chavarria of Rayo Vallecano who's been linked with a move to Chelsea, and tell you why I think this is an interesting transfer story for a number of different reasons. The Chelsea transfer profile is really well established now, that recruitment model. They haven't signed a player over the age of 25 for 4 summers now. They go for young, talented players with high resale value. This guy's a little different, isn't he? He's 28, he's a left back, didn't play in the Liga until he was 24, didn't play in Europe until just last season. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at his profile, we're going to go through some of his stats, and I've also spoken to one of his coaches who helped develop him at Real Zaragoza, and he had some really interesting insight just into how this is a player who not only can contribute on the field, but might help to change the culture at Chelsea. And I think that's what makes this such an interesting transfer link, because it not only says something about the player, but also about the direction of travel for Chelsea under Xabi Alonso. First of all, a quick introduction. My name is Adam Bate. I'm a football journalist with Sky Sports, and I have been for the past 15 years. I've covered 5 Champions League finals for Sky. I'm lucky enough to have travelled around the world, reporting on football, doing interviews, features. I've done one-on-one interviews with guys like Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp. Now, I don't think I'm going to be able to pick the phone up to them and get them to help me with this YouTube channel, but I do have a list of contacts around the world, which means that when there's a story happening, I can pick up the phone, I can speak to them, and take us a little bit closer to the story. Maybe it's a player that I don't know too much about, maybe you don't know too much about, but I think it's a core principle of journalism to get someone closer to the story. Hopefully you find that interesting, and if you do, please like and subscribe, and we can do more content like this. So Chavarria is one of those transfer links that makes people raise eyebrows. He's not a household name, he's not a glamour signing, but I think it's the fact that he's different that makes it interesting. Chavarria was playing in the second tier in Spain as recently as August 2022, and he worked his way up from the third division even before that. Now, I spoke to Jose Ramon Rodriguez, who's now the academy manager at Udinese, but at the time he was the assistant manager of Zaragoza when Chavarria arrived at the club in 2020. Now, Jose told me that immediately it was obvious that this was a player who had too much quality to play at that level, and I think that does happen sometimes. You get a player who slips through the cracks for a variety of reasons, but coming through that adversity, coming up the hard way, that can actually be an asset in the long run. An important point that he made is that the physicality was never an issue for him. This is a player who can get up and down the flank, who's really got energy, very busy player. And I think that's important, potentially for Xabi Alonso, who may want to use him as a fullback or a wing-back. One word that Jose kept returning back to was mentality. This is a guy who sacrifices himself for the team. He's a team player, always gives his maximum. Now, those are maybe boring qualities, not the things people want to hear about. They want to hear about technique, tactical impact. But I think it's really important, and I think it's particularly important for Chelsea. It's a hallmark of players who make it to the top and stay there. And Chelsea's problem last season was partly mentality. They did lose their way. They did need leaders in that second half of the season. I think that's why I found this so interesting in regards to Chelsea, because Jose said that when Zaragoza were not doing well and they were struggling, this was a guy who maintained standards. He took responsibility. He kept wanting to improve, and he never made excuses. Now, being a good character is one thing, but you do need to be able to contribute. So why is it that Chelsea think that Pep Chavarria can do this? So this is where the numbers can give you a little bit of insight. La Liga last season, these are the numbers. 87 times he won possession of the ball in the defensive third. That ranked 11th in the competition. He was also in the top dozen players for effectively blocking crosses. So you know there's a defensive contribution there. But crucially, he also brought something in attack. He made the 7th most crosses from open play in La Liga last season, and he also was in the top dozen players for winning corners. So that gives you a little insight into his energy that he shows down the flank, kind of lets you build a picture of him in your mind. Andoni Iraola was the guy who gave him his debut in La Liga. I think that tells you something as well, because he's a coach who demands high-energy players. He loves an overlapping fullback and an underlapping fullback as well. But I think it'll be important for Xabi Alonso, because this is a coach who, yeah, he's played a back four, but he's also won the double in Germany, playing a back five. So he could need a fullback, could need a wing back, whatever he needs. He wants his player out there on that flank to be able to contribute in all phases of the game. Now, before I start sounding too much like his agent, let's talk about some potential weaknesses, or at least areas of concern. So even though the crossing numbers are high, this isn't a player with a credible track record of attacking contributions. This isn't an Alex Grimaldo at Bayer Leverkusen, who was so important in that left wing-back position for Xabi Alonso in the title-winning season. It's not even really a Marc Cucurella, who could get into the box, come inside, make contributions there. Chavarria did score an absolutely spectacular goal against Atletico Madrid last season, but that was his only goal. He was actually sent off more times than he scored for Rayo Vallecano last season. Now, the next point is a little bit more contentious because people disagree on it, particularly the public, fans. But this idea of English exceptionalism, some people reject it, but actually for scouts, you speak to them, it is a factor. This guy has not played in the Premier League. He's 28 years old, never played abroad before. So as well as the cultural challenge of that, there's also a challenge tactically, technically, because the Premier League is different, and it's become more different last season in terms of long throws, crosses into the box, corners, free kicks. It will place demands on a player that maybe he hasn't experienced to that degree before, so it will be a flag. But I think we can see with some of these players that Chelsea are being linked with, it's not just Chavarria, it's Max Lacroix of Crystal Palace, it's Granit Xhaka most notably, who is a guy that Alonso's worked with before at Leverkusen. He's looking for people not just to make an impact tactically, but to change that word again, mentality inside that dressing room. There's a lot of young players at Chelsea, and he's looking to change that profile. Now, I think that's fascinating because I went to visit Leverkusen a couple of times. I sat down with Simon Rolfes, who was the sporting director, and Leverkusen were a club that had a culture like a lot of clubs in the Bundesliga of looking to develop players. That was the priority. When Alonso went in, he did shift that. He did look for something different. He signed not just Xhaka, he signed Jonas Hoffmann, who was a player over the age of 30. He signed Grimaldo, who was nearly 28. He recognised that he wanted players who could help him win in the here and now. I think that's what intrigues me so much about this one. It's not just the player himself. Of course, it would be an exciting opportunity for him if it goes through. But I think it's what it tells us about Chelsea. I think it's really revealing about the direction of travel under Alonso, what he's looking for, what he's looking to add. And the fact that he's willing to look at players that other top clubs might dismiss, I think shows how important that is for Alonso this season.